Car dealer.
Car dealer. Okay, a bunch of car news now that we are in May.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go through it quickly because I know that Kenna doesn't care at all. All right, couple of key points. April sales, really, really strong for new cars. We talked last month about how a lot of consumers pulled forward their purchase, wanting to avoid tariffs. That kept happening in April.
We think this was a pre-tariff result.
100%. And like every analyst has basically said, we don't actually know anything. Even the Fed Chairman Powell today said in the Fed's comments that the data from April and Q1 isn't realistic because it's not actually a true measure of what purchasing looked like because everybody pulled forward.
Right.
Purchasing
big
inventory,
purchases.
purchasing big purchases, whatever.
Inventory,
That is certainly true here too. There are some exceptions. There's some automakers that just had very weak Aprils because they weren't importing cars, Porsche being one of them, to be honest. But a lot of the mainstream manufacturers had really, really strong April sales numbers. Not surprising. We kind of knew that would happen. And that's why some manufacturers freezed price increases or Ford went to employee pricing to just kind of try to incentivize that. But that all kind of changes now. Today, Ford announced that on 3 of their models, the Maverick, the Bronco Sport, and the third one I'm blanking on, they're going to raise prices by up to $2,000 starting June 1st.
Such a shame. Maverick.
The cheapest product, by the way.
The moment all these tariffs were announced, I was like, this is going to hit Maverick.
Yep.
And Maverick, one of the big selling points of Maverick is its affordability.
Yep. It's going to be a
$2,000 price increase. Is that $2,000?
$1,200 on the Maverick, but some of the other models.
That's 5%.
Yeah.
On a base Maverick.
Because it's built in Mexico. And there's other manufacturers that will inevitably start doing that too. Ford is the first to very publicly say it, but everybody else has kind of hinted at that.
Plus, if it's $1,200 now, but they probably can't continue at a 5%. Only a 5% increase if they're paying significant tariffs. So
every manufacturer has kind of started to come out with guidance for what's likely to happen. A bunch of manufacturers, Mercedes-Benz, Volvo, Stellantis, some others have basically said, we have no idea what's going to happen. We are a public company. Public companies generally give guidance to analysts for what they expect to have happen. They've pulled their guidance. They've just said, we don't know yet. We'll come back to you with more information, which is rare. Incredibly rare that anybody would do that.
Well, it's bad, short-sighted policy, and I think that the automakers hope that the government comes up with a similar conclusion.
Yeah, and manufacturers are also very clearly trying to adapt both long-term and short-term. Long-term, it is having some of the effect that President Trump and his administration want. Audi has said publicly that they're looking at building U.S. capacity to build a new EV. That'll be a few years from now, but they're going to invest in that. That's certainly what the Trump administration wants. At the same time, GM has said that they expect about a $5 billion tariff impact to their revenue in 2025. They have also said publicly that they think that they can offset about 30% of tariff costs internally. What that really means is they will cut jobs and they will cut investment.
So here's where the tariffs to benefit American workers. Here's where the tariffs come into play. They're just going to lay off American workers.
Volvo cut 125 jobs yesterday
in South Carolina,
in the U.S. And basically what Stellantis and GM and everybody else has said is, this is going to impact American jobs and it's going to impact investment in our future products. What you do is you try to offset the cost for what you have right now, and you extend product life cycles. You stop investing in whatever's coming next. Maybe you invest in factories in the U.S., which is desirable, but it comes at the expense of any expense you can cut right now to make the next couple of years close to break even.
The unintended consequences of policy are unbelievable. Yep. Policy making is a lot harder than a lot of people think. A lot of blustery people who kind of say, "Oh, why don't we just do this or that?" And there's a reason that a lot of things are the way they are. And it's so funny that we're going to end up losing American jobs and already have lost American jobs due to the tariffs, which in theory are designed to protect American jobs, but will not have that effect.
Yep.
And probably will never have that effect. I mean, Audi trying to build a factory to make an EV. What's the timeline on that?
Years.
GM is saying a $5 billion cut to revenue. They're not saying that they're going to make these big investments in the U.S. What everybody's thinking is we're just going to wait this out. Yep. And there's going to be a couple of tough years probably, and there might be a recession as a result of these stupid tariffs. But the country will then realize like this isn't what we want and elect somebody who's not pushing it.
There will be tough times in between, right? Like Rivian and I'm quoting specific companies just to make the point that I'm not saying this. Rivian and others have said that they expect weaker sales because they expect the tariffs will impact, that the economy overall will slow down and that will impact especially upmarket demand. Not surprising. I think we've been saying that for a long time. There's a lot in question here. I mean, there's both, can we build cars? Can we produce them here? Are there people to buy it, et cetera?
Yeah.
That makes it tough. I will also say, this is going to mean less interesting cars coming out a few years from now. No automaker is in this time where they have to really do some penny pinching to survive. Invest in something cool.
Of course. And it's going to mean higher prices for used cars.
Yeah.
And this is going to hurt us all. Unless you run a used car auction website.
Right.
But I don't feel, though, like that benefits me. Like, yeah, it will probably benefit our business. But like, I feel like I'm an enthusiast first. I already got my money out of that.
With you, as the value,
I mean that truly.
Because we saw that huge run up in 2020 and 2021 of used car values. When it started to come back down again, I was happy because it meant that people could get into these cool cars.
And by the way,
again.
we're still selling cars.
Yeah,
like whether
absolutely.
the values are up or down, we Cars and Bids are still selling cars. Yeah. Obviously, the revenue is lower when the values are lower, and so we'll probably make money because of the tariffs. But like, as a car enthusiast,
you make money until the economy.
And that's the other thing. That's the other thing.
Yes.
So then do we make more money? Great, for a couple months. And then you have layoffs because companies who are getting product from overseas can't continue to sell that product. And so they start laying off workers. People lose their jobs and they stop buying stuff. And that includes our product.
Yeah.
Suddenly we're affected even though we're not actually tariffed. And then the whole economy starts to slow down.
I actually do mean new cars 5 years from now, they're going to be less interesting.
Yeah.
There's already a bunch of manufacturers that are saying they're not going to sell specific products in the U.S. The Jeep Compass, which nobody here cares about, but Jeep's newest product, has been revealed. That we know when it's going to go for sale in Europe and other markets. They've said it's not going to come to the U.S. They were planning on it. Sure. That will be true of a lot of other products where they're just not going to bother to invest in it.
Any niche car, which is a lot of sports cars at this point, why would an automaker put in that investment to sell it here, deal with tariffs? And it's so every time we get comments, and by the way, we get very few comments that are against our tariff stance. You know, I got a long rant prepared about tariffs, but I didn't say it. But we are a car industry podcast, and we're the biggest car podcast in the world. And so I think being able to having these conversations about tariffs is important, but also standing up and advocating for the industry is important at this point. I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten from people at automakers who have thanked me for taking for taking these positions on tariffs. And that's a big deal, and I think that's important. And we get some negative comments, but the vast majority of comments support our points of view. They're from logical, rational people who understand that this is going to have a big impact on our industry and an industry that we are enthusiasts of. If you've been watching my videos for a long time, you'll remember I used to take my cars to CarMax to see what they'd offer me as a trade-in value. These videos were fun and popular as they would often give me a wildly inaccurate number for the cars. Submit your cool car to Cars and Bids in just a few minutes and you'll be connected with an auction manager from my team who will help your car go live on Cars and Bids, where you'll get way more money for your car than trading it in to a big box dealer. Look at how much these cars sold for on Cars and Bids compared to their trade-in value. Here's a trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Here's a trade-in value and the Cars and Bids result. And this was a trade-in value, and this was the Cars and Bids result. Get started now and sell your car on carsandbids.com.